In this video, I'm going to be recapping the real estate market for 2024 for the Durham region and the GTA, as well as giving my prediction on what I think is going to happen in 2025. Hey there, my name is Kyle Duke. I am a real estate agent in the Durham region and the GTA, and I've been servicing both buyers and sellers for the last 10 years. Now, my goal going forward is to start putting out a lot more videos for tips and tricks, as well as educational purposes for both buyers and sellers to help better navigate the real estate market. Now, if you're thinking of buying or selling in 2025 and you want to reach out, all of my information will be below. So let's get into the video. So 2024 was a very, very interesting time for real estate. We saw a lot of ups and downs, a lot of uncertainty, and where we're headed, I think, is very, very interesting. Now, we knew heading into this year, there were going to be 6 announcements from the Bank of Canada regarding the key interest rates. Now, what we didn't know is whether they were going to hold, drop, or increase, and only time was going to tell. And with that unknown of what they were going to do created a lot of uncertainty within the market. Buyers didn't know if they should buy now, and sellers didn't know if they should sell, move up or move down, or even just offload their properties. And if you look at January to March of this year, we saw low inventory and a lot of demand, which had everybody wondering, are we headed back into a frenzy real estate market? Now, thinking that at the very beginning of the year, no one really knew what that meant if we were heading back into those crazy times. But we did know that the Bank of Canada was dangling that carrot with the decisions on what they're going to do with those key interest rates. Now, as the year progressed, we started to see a lot more inventory in April, May, June, July, which was definitely an extremely slow spring and summer market. We saw triple the amount of inventory than we were used to over the last few years. And at points, it was the most inventory Durham had seen in the last 10 years. Now, this fluctuated month over month, but as we headed further into the year and closer to the summertime, the inventory was at an all-time high. And when we saw this inventory be at its all-time high, buyers were in the position of having time to think about what they were going to do, as well as go home and sleep on it overnight. Versus what they're used to is where you have 10 minutes to make a decision and put an offer in right away. Now, if you were a buyer in the months of April to August, you are in a great position. You have the ability to negotiate with the seller to try and get the best price and best terms. Now, if you were a seller in those months, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just what sellers are not used to or haven't been used to over the last few years. What we did see were properties sitting longer on the market, sellers having to negotiate more off of their list price than what they originally wanted to, and buyers coming in with a lot of conditions, which in my opinion isn't a bad thing. As long as everyone is protected, then that is the best thing going forward. Because everybody has been so conditioned to see houses sell in 24 or 48 hours, once buyers were starting to see homes sit on the market for 7, 10 to 12 days, they felt that they were in a position. Now, from the months of April to August, the houses were taking longer to sell, some weren't selling at all, and buyers had so many different options. Now, as a seller, you're competing against a ton of different listings, and as buyers, you're not competing with almost any buyers, which has been the opposite. And it hasn't been like that in the real estate market for a very long time, where the buyers are almost in more control than the sellers. Now, I think it's a win-win because, again, if you're selling in that kind of market, whatever you're going to be losing on your sale price, you're going to be gaining that back when you go and purchase something else. And as buyers had more options, obviously we started to see the prices come down a bit as the inventory continued to pick up, which is only normal to see when the inventory is high and the demand starts to fall off. Now, the interesting part about the real estate market in 2024 was after September is when we started to see the amount of inventory start to drop. And as these rates were starting to get reduced over the year by the Bank of Canada, you started to see a little bit more of a pickup within the market. In the time of year that we saw this specifically here in Durham Region was in the middle of September. Once school started back up, everybody was done traveling for the summer and enjoying their cottages. we started to see the housing market demand increase and inventory from sellers start to decrease. Now, that doesn't mean that the prices started to skyrocket automatically, but what we did see was the market almost balance out and see the bottom of the market around middle of September. Now, as we started to see the Bank of Canada's announcements drop those key interest rates, the buyers' confidence started to come back and they were getting back out there with a lot more activity on listings. Now, as we got towards the middle of September is when we started to see really the market balance out. It almost hit its bottom because during the summer months, buyer demand was not there and houses were taking a long time to sell. People were starting to be unsure of what this meant. Definitely seeing inventory drop and the buyer demand increase. In some instances, we've seen multiple offers on properties, specifically your lower price point homes, so your semis, your towns, and your single detached. Now, as we head into the final quarter of the year, we've seen inventory slowly start to drop and the buyer's confidence is starting to come back. And a lot of that has to do with the consistent drops from the Bank of Canada. Now, what do I think is going to happen in 2025? I think the first quarter of 2025 is going to be very, very busy. I think we're going to see low inventory. I think you're going to see a lot of buyers wanting to get out and start shopping right away so they can beat the rush of the spring market. The most interesting thing to look at going into the 2025 year is going to be quarter 2 and quarter 3. If the inventory levels stay low and the demand is still there, as well as the Bank of Canada consistently dropping those rates, I wouldn't be surprised if we found ourselves in a seller's market once again. Now, even though you may find yourself in a seller's market in the new year, it doesn't necessarily mean that prices are going to spike. I think everyone is well aware how crazy the market got a few years ago when we started to see $300,000, $400,000 over asking. And I think people are pretty educated now knowing that that was not the best decision for their real estate investment. But again, I do believe heading into the new year that the buyer's confidence is back. And I do think that we are going to see a busy real estate market. The biggest thing to look out going into the new year is, does the inventory spike again as we head into the spring, or does it stay consistent from our slower months of January to March? Now, the question I get asked the most is, do you think you're going to see a lot of power of sales? And a power of sale is when the bank takes over your property because you've missed your mortgage payments for X amount of time. Yes, 2024 and 2025 are going to be the year where we see a lot of renewals come up for a lot of people who bought during the crazy times. But the one thing that is true is Canadians are known for paying their mortgages, and the banks do not want to take over your property. So there is going to be a little bit more leniency, I think, from the banks of making those payments. But I truly don't believe we're going to see a crazy amount of power of sales heading into the new year from all these sellers who are unable to make their mortgage payments, even though their interest rates have maybe even doubled or tripled. I think in a perfect world heading into the new year, we should see a gradual increase in prices from about 3 to 5%. If you're a buyer heading into the new year and you are looking to get into the market, my suggestion is get your pre-approvals in now and potentially start looking at getting out and looking from January, February to March. And if you're a seller and you're thinking of selling in 2025, I would suggest you get your home ready to go now so that if we do start to see any changes within the market, you are ready to go and make that move whenever you need to. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. My name is Kyle Duke, and if you are thinking of buying or selling in the new year, please feel free to reach out at any time.